It's 2 in the morning and your hand reaches for the side of the bed that's empty now. Nobody warned you that missing him wouldn't follow the timeline everyone promised you. The grief they show in movies ends by the credits, but yours doesn't work anything like that. What you're feeling isn't only sadness, and it isn't you falling apart. Your brain and your body are reacting to something specific that left the room, and once you can name it, the missing starts to make a strange kind of sense. This is the psychology of the Gen X widow and why you miss him the way you do. Think back to the version of grief you grew up watching. The widow cries at the funeral, everyone gathers around to hold her, and by the time the credits roll, she's already starting over. That's the story most Gen X women were handed as girls, and it turned out to be a quiet lie. Real grief doesn't move through 5 neat stages that show up in order. It doesn't wrap up on a schedule, and it doesn't check whether the calendar thinks you should be finished by now. The part nobody warned you about is that the missing often gets stranger before it ever gets softer. What you're carrying is closer to what psychologists call disenfranchised grief. That's grief that never gets a tidy shape or a public place to land, so it keeps living inside you with nowhere to go. You keep waiting to reach the stage where it finally lifts, and instead, it just changes form and settles in deeper. So the real problem was never that you're grieving the wrong way. The problem is that nobody ever told you what you'd actually be missing once he was gone. And that missing is built from specific pieces you were never taught to name. Start with the most physical thing you lost, because it's the one that surprises people the most. It was never only him. It was the body in the house, the sound of someone breathing in the next room, the weight of another person moving through the space. That quiet background presence kept your own system calm, and you never once noticed it was doing that. Go back to 2 in the morning again. Your hand reaches across the mattress for a warmth that used to be there, and it finds cold sheets instead. That reach isn't weakness. It's your nervous system going looking for something it leaned on for years. When that steady presence disappears, your body doesn't simply feel sad. It stays in a low, humming state of alert, like it's braced for a danger it can't quite name. Researchers who study widows find real changes in the body after a loss like this. A nervous system stuck in overdrive, broken sleep, a heart that races for no reason you can point to. There's a plain name for part of this, and it's attachment disruption. Your nervous system had wired itself around his presence, and now it keeps scanning the room for a signal that stopped coming. It runs like a background program in your body that you can't find and can't switch off. And the body is only the first thing you're missing, because the next loss is quieter and much harder to see. More than 90% of the people watching this video right now are not subscribed. If you've ever felt like your grief was invisible to everyone around you, this is one place where you don't have to explain it or apologize for it. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, share this with one person who needs to hear this. Now let's continue. The second thing you're missing has nothing to do with the empty bed. You lost your witness. He was the one person who saw you across an entire lifetime, who remembered the girl you were before you became whoever you are now, who held the version of your story that only the two of you shared. A lot of Gen X women grew up without ever really being seen. You were the kid who came home to an empty house and learned early that nobody was watching that closely. Then he came along, and he saw you. Without that witness, your own life can start to feel strangely unreal, like it's happening with no one there to confirm that it even counts. You feel it in the smallest moments. Something funny happens, or you hear a piece of news you have an opinion about, and you turn to tell him, and there's a half second before you remember there's no one to turn to. That reflex is the exact shape of the hole he left behind. Psychologists describe a person like that as a mirror for your identity, someone who reflects back who you are. When the mirror is gone, your sense of yourself gets shaky, because part of who you were lived inside being known by him. You've lost the body in the house, and now the witness, And there's a third loss that catches people off guard because it isn't about the past at all. There's a loss almost nobody prepares you for. You're not only grieving the past you shared with him, you're grieving the future the two of you already built inside your heads. You lost the retirement you were saving toward, the trip you kept saying you'd take, the ordinary Tuesday 10 years from now that still had him in it. There was a version of you who lived inside that future, a woman with a plan and a person to grow old beside. When he died, she died too. You're mourning someone who never got the chance to exist. This is why the kind things people say tend to land so flat. When someone tells you he's in a better place or that you still have so much life left, it misses the point completely. The life you're aching for was one specific life, and it had him standing right in the middle of it. Grief researchers have a name for this piece too. It's grieving the life you thought you'd have, the future that suddenly narrowed down to almost nothing. What's gone isn't only the past, it's the map you were following. These three losses land on anyone who's widowed, but there's a reason they hit Gen X women harder and stranger than almost anyone tells you. Now it gets specific to you and the way you were raised, because two things from your childhood make this loss cut deeper. The first is the latchkey echo. You were maybe 8 years old, with a key on a string around your neck, letting yourself into an empty house, and learning that you handle things on your own, because nobody's coming. Widowhood flips that old switch right back on. The silent rooms come back, the sense that it's all on you again, the old reflex to cope alone. Except this time, the person didn't choose to walk out, and that changes everything and nothing at the same time. The second is what happens when the superwoman in you collides with grief. You spent decades being the strong one, the person everyone else leaned on. Now grief is asking you to fall apart, and every cell in your body says you don't have that luxury. So you keep moving, keep managing, keep showing up, and the missing quietly piles up in the corners where no one can see it. Gen X women carry the highest chronic stress of any group researchers have studied, and many were raised to be emotionally efficient instead of emotionally supported. You learn to push feelings down and keep functioning. Grief doesn't cancel that training. It just runs underneath it while your system slowly overloads. And there's one more pressure on you, and it might be the cruelest one, because this time it comes from everyone around you. Society hands you a rough deadline for grief. You get about 6 months of visible sadness before people start gently hinting that it's time to move forward. But grief has no idea what month it is. It shows up when you're least ready for it. You turn down an aisle in the grocery store, and there's his favorite cereal sitting on the shelf, and your whole body goes still in the middle of a bright, ordinary store full of strangers. That's a grief ambush, a trigger that floods you out of nowhere when you had no time to brace for it. Then there are the dates, the anniversary, the birthday, the one day that quietly reorganizes your entire year, while everyone around you treats it like a regular Tuesday. Nobody else marks it, and nobody else even remembers. That's a specific kind of pain, the grief that gets no room to exist because the world has already decided you should be finished. The gap between your private calendar and everyone else's becomes its own second loss. You're not only missing him, you're missing him alone, on a schedule that no one else is living by. And all of this leads to the thing almost nobody will say out loud about why you miss him. This next part might change how you see all of it. You might not miss him in the simple way you think you do. You might be missing the calm his presence gave your nervous system, the way your body settled just from having him in the house. You might be missing the witness who made your life feel real, the one who saw you and remembered you. You might be missing the version of yourself who existed inside a future that still had a plan. None of that is a betrayal of your love for him. That's your brain doing the only thing it can with a loss that has no logic to it. It's trying to work out exactly what left so it can make sense of a rupture that doesn't make any sense. The missing you feel is really built from those three things woven together: the body, the witness, and the future. So if it's still here after all this time, that doesn't mean you're doing grief wrong. It means you loved him in a way that can't be wrapped up and resolved like the last scene of a movie. Some love doesn't close. It just changes what it asks of you. So the question was never how to get over it. The question is how to carry it in a way that doesn't break your back. You don't fix this. You learn to hold it. And a few small things can make the weight easier to bear. The first is a bedtime ritual. That 2 a.m. reach is your nervous system searching in the dark, so give it something steady to find. Leave a lamp on. Play a calm voice low in the room. Rest a hand on your own chest and breathe out slowly, longer than you breathe in. Your body can settle on a steady rhythm, even a recorded one, because we're built to calm down around another presence. The second is 5 minutes of remembering on purpose. Instead of dodging the missing all day long, you sit down and let it in for 5 deliberate minutes. Look at the photo. Say his name, let it rise, and then let the rest of your day go on. Grief you make room for on purpose tends to ambush you less. The third is one object of his you can hold. It could be a watch, a shirt, a folded note, something that gives you permission to feel without pulling you all the way under. It works as a doorway and a boundary at the same time. None of this is about moving on. It's about carrying him with you in a way you can actually live inside. If you found this interesting, the next video goes even deeper into how the mind really works. So if you want to understand people on a completely different level and understand yourself a little better while you're at it, you should watch that one next.